Good evening and welcome to Posthumous Poetry Series Part 45. This is the first weekend in October and it's been beautiful. And I was real happy because right before I came to do this, I got a phone call from my dear friend Terry, who's on a plane to Poland for a vacation. So I'm going to dedicate this to her. Um, Next poems that I'll be doing here on into the series ends in November will just be favorites of mine and ones I've read many times or ones that I've never read, but ones that I really just strike a place in my own heart. Tonight's poem's one of those. Um, I don't know if you remember the 100th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty. It was a big to do, and they took the Statue of Liberty and they cleaned her up, and they had a big celebration about this happening. At the same time in America, around the same time, America decided that it wanted to have a poet laureate, and for what reason, still unclear today. We've been doing this for a while, and no one really knows who the poet laureates are, and the poet laureates don't really take it seriously. They've done very little to laureate or to expand the awareness of poetry, except I think the one who did the most was Robert Pinsky. His appearance on The Simpsons was probably the apex of the visibility of the poet laureate in America. And so they had this 100th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty. And like I say, they had the poet laureate thing going on. And so I'm watching this on television, and I say to myself, or maybe even out loud, this would be one of those occasions, where the poet laureate would come out and do his thing. And almost on command, when I said that, what happened was 200 Elvis impersonators came out and started dancing around the Statue of Liberty, doing what Elvis impersonators do. So I thought to myself, if that's how it is, I wish I could have been the one who choreographed the Elvis impersonators. At that time, about that time also, was when the Goodman biography of Elvis Presley came out. And it was a very salacious kind of story of Elvis's life, especially the later years. John Lennon once said that Elvis died when he went into the army, and I think he was kind of right about that. I think the Elvis that is really important to our culture was the blonde Elvis, as I call him. Elvis was actually blonde. He dyed his hair black because he thought it would look good in the movies. Tony Curtis is one of his movie idols, and he wanted to emulate Tony Curtis's look. But when you see Elvis, and it's so rare footage, from about 55, 56, Elvis was this incredible priapic performer who basically blew out the sexual chakra of America. And so much so that when he went on the Ed Sullivan Show, as we all know, he wasn't allowed to show him from the waist down because everyone feared that if women and men, especially women, saw Elvis doing his Elvis thing, orgies would break out across America because he was so sexual and so beautiful, and so. But once he came back from the army, things changed, and Tom Parker was his manager, and put him in his horrible movies, and instead of Elvis should have been out there hanging with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and going crazy, he was basically staying at home and using prescription drugs. His meeting with Richard Nixon was one of those meetings in which Elvis tried to get a DEA badge under the guise of telling Nixon that he knew a lot of people in the rock and roll world who used illegal drugs, and he could be influential with the DEA and sharing this information. What Elvis really wanted a DEA badge for was so when he went through customs, when he went through airports, people wouldn't stop and see the pharmacopoeia he carried with him everywhere he went. Elvis and Marilyn Monroe were really the essence of America. William Carlos Williams said that pure products of America go crazy, and that's we're seeing better in Elvis and Marilyn Monroe, and I'll save the Marilyn stuff for later. Elvis, was confined mentally and spiritually, and never kind of transcended and fully became the person he could be. He was very intelligent, very spiritual, and very spoiled after a while. And his death was to be predicted, I guess. So I thought I would then I could choreograph 200 Elvis impersonators at the Statue of Liberty. So the title of this poem is 200 Elvis impersonators at the 100th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty. And when I would read this poem in those days, when the Goodman biography came out, I was working in the bookstores, and they supported the marketing for the book by giving all the bookstores a life-size cutout of Elvis, which once the marketing stopped, I took the cutout and would carry it with me at poetry readings. And when I would read this poem, I would, unbeknownst to the audience, I would then pop up Elvis and put him on the stage with me, and they would, you could see the academics getting their nose all turned in the air when I did this. But it was fun. And also, Little Richard had a heart attack last week, and Little Richard was the creator of rock and roll on many levels, and I hope he does well. Sam Phillips always said about Elvis, if he could just find a white guy who could sing like a black man, then life would be great. And he was quite correct, because society, was the racist society we lived in, segregated both the white people and the black people when it came to music. The white people weren't allowed to see Little Richard because everyone was afraid if white girls saw Little Richard, they'd want to start fucking black guys, and we couldn't have that in America. So they insulted us by bringing Pat Boone to sing Tutti Frutti and those kind of songs, and whew, how horrible was that? So Elvis came along, and he could do it because his roots were in Tupelo, Mississippi, poor white trash kid, and he loved gospel and loved rock and roll, and he loved life. But so tonight's poem is called 200 Elvis impersonators at the 100th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty. Each eats a pound of king cotton bacon fried to a crisp, piling a quadruple helping of mashed potatoes with thickening gravy, sauerkraut, a dish of Crowder peas, a stack of sliced tomatoes, all the while holding a pinky in the air, along with dosages of amytal, biphetamine, demerol, dexamyl, dilaudid, nembutal, percodan, placidyl, quaalude, seconal, tuinal, valium. Each reads Initiation of the World through the eyes of the masters, esoteric healing, beyond the Himalayas, the masters, secret doctrine, the voice of silence, wisdom of overself, cosmic consciousness, infinite way, the mystical Christ, the teachings of all ages, the Rosicrucian cosmoconception, first and last freedom, the inner life, the leaves of Moria's garden, flame and chalice, new mansions for new men, the life and teachings of the masters from the Far East, autobiography of a yogi, your Rancher book, Corinthians 1:13, the physician's desk reference. Thick towels are pinned around their buttocks, filing themselves from injections of dilaudid, demerol, or speed. Listen to his favorite record, Charles Boyer reciting Where Does Love Go? Read current issues of Black Belt, Fighting Stars, Inside Kung Fu. There's no time for his favorite avocation, voyeurism, especially girls wrestling only in panties with pubic hair peeking at Elvis. They all swell up to 255 pounds, pick up a coffee with a shroud of Turin, go to the bathroom, and die.